to check whether the rule is circumstanced or not, or that rule might be in the multiple versions. Suppose I have a rule something like customer details section. So this is a section rule, and I have this rule in the organization class, same name in my framework work class, in my implementation work class. Okay, and in implementation I might be having it in 10 versions. So I might be having it in the version 1 as well as 2 as well as 3, 4. Similarly, here also it has to, maybe it is available in 10 such versions. Now I am trying to run a flow. I logged into implementation application now. I am trying to run a flow rule. Flow rule is available in my implementation work class, and I am trying to call the first flow action, and it has to load this section. What instance it will be picking out on all these things? Implementation 10th version. It's default behavior. So it has to check from what application or class we are currently into, and for that it will check the rule set hierarchy, and out of that the best rule set it will be looking for. There it will be checking how many versions it is having. So highest version is the 10th one. So will the 10th be picked up? So before picking up the 10th, it will again cross check whether that is circumstanced or not. Correct, right? So whenever it is picking up the best instance, it has to check lot many things. So that rule with that name, in how many applications, how many classes, or how many rule sets, how many versions, and how many circumstance, lot many things. It will not simply pick up a rule for the namesake. It has to follow rigorous checking in the background. Then it will be checking what is the best instance out of that, and that will be used for processing. So in order to pick up the best instance, it will be running one powerful algorithm in the background. So that algorithm is called rule resolution algorithm. So it will be running one powerful algorithm in the background with the name rule resolution algorithm. So to process a rule, generally it will be having multiple checks. So a rule can be circumstanced or based, and rule can have more than one versions. It can be available in multiple versions. Correct, right? So it can be available in multiple rule sets. Correct, right? Multiple classes, or multiple applications. Okay, lot many things. So while processing a rule, PRPC has to check for the best instance. Let us consider there are 10 steps. So if I'm trying to just search for a rule, PRPC has to process it. It might be like searching from here or running a flow rule. So if I'm trying to search for customer details section, or if I'm trying to request the same rule from a flow rule, effort will be same for PRPC. So what it has to do, it has to check that particular name is matching with how many rules and how many versions or how many instances, and the final one is like circumstance or not, lot many things, right? So consider it is following 10 steps. Let me consider. So if I'm trying to search for that rule, it has to follow these 10 steps and has to pick up the one. So this is processed. Maybe the very next second, if I click on search again 10 steps, again searching. So if I'm trying to run a flow rule, this particular section, maybe it is taking 10 steps for one effort. If I'm trying to run it for 3 times, algorithm has to run to pick that rule for 3 times following the same 10 steps, right? So this is something what we're imagining. Okay, but here if it is trying to follow the same number of steps every time, same effort every time, then somewhere some kind of performance lag will get. So that is the reason PRPC follows something like, once a rule is picked up, just to pick a rule, it has to follow lot many things. Consider 10 steps. Once a rule is identified as the best, and once that is picking up, it will not directly use it for the processing. It will never directly use it for the processing. Instead, that particular rule will be kept somewhere in the cache tables. So it will be kept somewhere in the cache tables. So cache table meaning the rule whatever I'm trying to process, that will be first checked by PRPC, and that will be kept in the cache. From there only processing will happen. From there only processing will happen. Maybe second time, if I'm trying to request for the same rule, should it has to check all the 10 or 20 steps? No. So it has already kept an effort to identify the best one, right? So it will be available directly in the cache. So to process a rule, first and foremost, where that rule has to be checked? Cache table. So if it is available in the cache, process it from there. If not, run all the things, put that in the cache from there only. So my rule resolution algorithm works only from the cache table. Is this correct statement or not? It has to work only from the cache table. True statement. If it is there, process it from there. If not, check all the things, put it in the cache and process. So rule has to be picked only from the cache table. 100% true. So whenever I am trying to request for any rule, it has to be first checked in the cache. If not, check for the remaining steps, put it in the cache, from there only processing. So rule will be picked only from the cache table. Suppose if I'm trying to search for send email notification, this is one activity, right? So if I'm trying to search for that, what PRPC is doing? It has to check for lot many things, and it has to be kept in cache table. From there it will be processed. So one such cache table is this recent tab. So I'm closing this. If I'm trying to search for this again, it will not check for all the things. It has to check from the cache only. So recent tab is also one such cache. So from here directly it will be open. So recently it got created, right? So a rule processing will happen only from the cache tables. Just for that, it has to follow lot many things in the background. So the proper thing what we have to understand here is, to process a rule, PRPC has to check whether that is available in cache or not. That is first thing. And it has to check whether that rule is available in multiple. If not in cache, it has to proceed further. It has to check whether that rule is available with the multiple versions, maybe circumstance or base, multiple rule sets, multiple classes, all these things. Maybe like it has to check for these many things. Let us consider. So circumstance or not, multiple versions, multiple rule sets in different classes, in different applications. And apart from all these things, it has to check for one important thing called rule authorization. What is rule authorization? So if I'm trying to request for a rule, it has to check whether I'm really authorized to access that or not. So maybe today I got access for implementation 1. I can access all the rules from there. Tomorrow I got access for the second one, removing the first one. Now if I'm in the second application login, if I'm trying to search for a rule which is from implementation 1, will that should be processed for me or not? It should not. Why? Authorization stops. So even it is passing the remaining things, authorization is something where it has to stop it, where it has to stop. Suppose if I'm a manager, got access for the both the applications. I'm in currently in 2 and I got access for 1 also. And if I'm trying to search for one rule from here, will that be showing for me or not? I mean, implementation 2 only, but I got access for both. I'm trying to search for the rule from implementation 1. Is that possible or not? So if you're just trying to search for any rule, so it has to check the respective things and has to show the results. And here there will be something called all applications. All applications meaning to all the applications what I given access. Meaning I can just search for the rule but not for the processing. Processing depends upon the inheritance. This is implementation work class. This is also work class. How these two will be linked up. So we can just search for that rule, meaning I'm authorized to access that rule. Maybe my flow rule cannot access. So if I open flow rule and if I wanted to call a rule from that application 1 out of inheritance, not at all possible. But here for searching I can able to do because I'm authorized for both the things. My operator got two access groups, application 1 and 2, both I can access, right? So as part of rule resolution algorithm, there is one more concept also called rule authorization. What we have already discussed. What is an access group? Based on the access group, what application I have to get? Okay, so this we already discussed. And another important thing is like it has to check for some more thing. So once a rule has to be picked up, it has to check all these things. Additionally, it has to check for one more thing called rule availability. Rule availability. What is rule availability? So for every rule, there will be an option called available. I can see one option called available, meaning this rule is available for the processing. So then only it has to be processed. So this is the highest version, this is the circumstance, everything is fine, but if it is not like available, it should not be processed now. So for each and every rule, by default there will be something called available, and if that is the case, this rule will be processed. Suppose if I click on the respective rule, we are having some other options. What are those? Not available, blocked, final, withdraw. As part of rule availability, we are having 5 options. What will be the default one? Available meaning all the time it is processing, right? I did not see any negative impact here. Suppose if I select this one, some negative meaning. So this one, negative. And this one, not sure. Positive or negative, not pretty sure. This one, negative. Withdraw means some kind of reverse processing. So negative impact. So what will happen if I'm trying to make a rule available? If it is not available, all these things. Suppose if I'm marking it like not available, meaning this rule, everything is fine, but not available meaning not to be used for processing, right? So will my algorithm fix this rule? Should this has to pick up a rule? No. So as part of rule availability, so we are having these many checks. Okay, so these will be the final checks. So it has to check the cache tables. If it is there, it has to be processing from there. If not, it has to check for the step 1, 2, 3, 4 accordingly. And finally, it will be picking up the best result. And it has to be stored somewhere in the cache table. From there only processing should happen. So this is the things. So for this, we'll be having 10-step algorithm. 10-step algorithm. What will happening in step 1? What will happen in step 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe after the final step again will it come back to cache table or not? So this algorithm is very important. So that you have to understand only after this you are understanding. Remaining things we know, right? Circumstancing, versions, rule sets, classes, authorization, everything we know. So we are not sure what is the rule availability. By default, every rule will be made available.
Small doubt, sir.
By default, every rule will be made available. So if it is made like not available, negative impact. So what will be the options if we go for not available? Interest will ask you. So if a rule is made not available, how it is different from available rule? If a rule is made blocked, then what is its significance? And if it is made final, withdrawn, all these things. So based on the option what we are selecting out of these 5, so behavior will be changed. Okay, so we'll understand this rule availability concept in the next class. We don't have enough time. Post that, we'll try to understand that algorithm completely. Then you'll understand everything. Yeah, what is that? Someone is asking.
Sir, like we circumstance